Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a weekly television show called Team Chicago Challenge. My website, teamchicago.tv. Teamchicago.tv. We are on Catalina Island. I'm on a 5-week vacation out west. Let me show you some interesting stuff from California that has to do with either ships, airplanes. We went to the Reagan Museum. And don't forget my website, teamchicago.tv. As we look at the town of Avalon on Catalina Island, this is an interesting story on property rights and the importance of owning property in America. This island was first owned by Thomas Robbins, who was given a Mexican land grant in 1846. He then sold the island to Jose Marie Covarrubias, and it was recognized by the Public Land Commission of the state of California in 1853. In 1864, the entire island was owned by James Lick. A land developer from Grand Rapids, Michigan, George Sato, tried to develop the town of Avalon, but ran out of money, so it returned to the Lick estate. The Banning brothers then bought the island in 1891 and tried to develop it, but ran out of money during World War I. Then decided to sell shares in the island, and William Wrigley Jr. bought the majority of the shares. He was the owner of the Wrigley Chewing Gum Company in Chicago and also the owner of the Chicago Cubs. From 1921 to 1951, the Chicago Cubs had their spring training right here on Catalina Island. During World War II, the island was used for military training by various branches of the United States Armed Forces. In 1972, the majority of the island was turned over to the Catalina Island Conservatory by Philip K. Wrigley, the son of William Wrigley Jr. And that is the status of this island as I give this report. A great time in California, and I'm going to show you some ships, some planes, some automobiles in California. Let's begin our journey in San Francisco as we see the Golden Gate Bridge and the city of San Francisco hidden in fog. We spent some time at the California Maritime Museum, and I'm going to show you 3 scale model ships where the detailing is unbelievable. It is so great. First, we're going to look at a clipper ship, and then we're going to look at a lumber schooner, and thirdly, we're going to look at a tropical trading ship. These ships were built in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. As first we look at this clipper ship, a ship that would have carried freight and passengers. We can see some men on the mast unfolding the sails. Great detail. The scale on these models is 3/16 of an inch is equal to 1 foot. Incredible detailing in the Maritime Museum in San Francisco. Next, we're going to look at the lumber schooner. A ship that would have been used to transport lumber from the northern reaches of California down to San Francisco and Los Angeles. And next we're going to look at a tropical trader similar to one that would have been built in 1901, a 4-mast freight ship that would have ran between California and New Zealand and Australia. Look at the detail on this model. Lumber being loaded onto the ship. As we get a chance to look at the construction of the ship on the other side, the way the hull was built, great detailing, magnificent artists making a model of a tropical trader. To tell you the truth, I have never seen such detailing on a modeled ship. Remember, the scale is 3/16 of an inch, equal 1 foot. Look at the detail of the block and tackle. Wonderful modeling right here at the Maritime Museum in San Francisco. And next we're looking at the Queen Mary, a British-built ocean liner that is now docked in Long Beach, California, is being used as a hotel, and I had the pleasure to stay one night on the Queen Mary. In one of their halls, they had a group of modeled ships that were quite detailed and amazing. This here is Britannia. This is a model of one of the early steam-powered steam engine with side paddles and sails to go between Europe and the United States, built in 1840. Next, we're looking at the Oregon, built in 1884, still has sails, internal steam engines with propellers at the rear, but a passenger ship nonetheless. This here is a model of the Titanic. We all remember the story of the Titanic that sailed in 1912. As we look at the cutaway of the Titanic, you will see that the 4 stacks are used for both taking air in and for exhaust for the steam engines that were fired with coal. Next, we're looking at a model of the Queen Mary, the ship that we are on. I had the opportunity to walk the ship and look down from the bridge, and all of this detail is very correct. And now we're looking at the modern Queen Mary, which is more than just an ocean liner, it is also a cruise ship. The Queen Mary II. As we look at this cutaway of the Normandy, you can see the grand ballrooms, a magnificent ship. And we will end this tour looking at the compartments where they would have stored automobiles that were shipped between Europe and the United States. And this is in Long Beach, California. Next in Sacramento, we're at the California Automobile Museum that has one very serious, important car, a real gem as far as the industrial might of the United States of America. As we see the Chevrolet, the Cadillac, and finally a Model T Ford. This is a 1904 Ford runabout with a 2-cylinder engine. This is also a 1904 touring car, part of the early era of the brass age wealthy cars. This is a 1906. But this gem here is a replica of Henry Ford's first automobile that he built in 1896, using 2 cylinders from a steam engine. He built a 2-cylinder engine, gasoline, internal combustion engine, but this would be considered an external engine as we look at the 2 connecting rods from the 2 cylinders going to the red flywheel. On the flywheel is a belt drive. We could see instead of a carburetor, that gasoline was just led into the cylinders. 2 spark plugs, one on each cylinder, a very primitive valve system, and a primitive ignition system at the front of this engine. But this engine shows the brilliance of Henry Ford. Building this quadricycle in 1896. It is a 2-cylinder gasoline-powered engine, an external flywheel driving a belt, using a jack shaft to drive the chain to one of the rear wheels. This was the beginning of Henry Ford's building automobiles. This gem should be on a turntable in the center of this museum. Probably the most valuable vehicle in this museum. But we are now looking at a 6-cylinder Ford Roadster that sold for $2,800 and could do 60 miles an hour. This was the decision between 1907 and 1908 to build this luxury car, a car that won a 24-hour race in Detroit, or building the Model T that sold for $850 in 1908. Ford decided to stick with the Model T, and the rest is history. Henry Ford should be given great credit for putting America on wheels, and the automobile represents personal freedom in the great country that we call the United States of America. Also in Sacramento is the California State Railroad Museum, and on the property is the reconstructed Huntington Hopkins hardware store. Those 2 gentlemen and 2 other gentlemen, Crocker and Stanford, were the Big Four. They were part of the Central Pacific Railroad, building the railroad through the Sierra Nevada mountains. C.P. Huntington, this engine named after the first president of the railroad, this 2-wheel drive engine built in 1861 and was shipped around South America to California, is a great representation of a gorgeous steam engine in the Railroad Museum. the two-wheel drive, as we see the connecting rods and the slide from the steam cylinder. 1861, this engine was built and was the first engine of that Central Pacific Railroad. Another great looking steam engine in the museum is this North Pacific Coast Railroad Sonoma. It's got a two-wheel drive with two lead wheels, so it's a 4-4 steam engine using wood as the fuel. A lovely looking restoration, a beautiful train here in the California State Railroad Museum. And next we're looking at a Southern Pacific 2467 Pacific type steam engine, as we see Rosie the Riveter on the front of the engine. 72-inch wheels. It's a 462 Pacific type engine. It's got 6 drive wheels. This engine was capable of speeds up to 100 miles an hour, pulling 15 heavy passenger cars or pulling freight cars. Between 1900 and 1950, over 700 of these engines were built. And the largest engine in the museum, the Southern Pacific locomotive number 4294. The twin locomotive with a cab forward. It was built in 1944 and they used it through 1956. It was built to haul passengers and freight through the Sierra Nevada mountains. Now we're at the Reagan Museum in Simi Valley as we look at this diorama of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. We can see the Air Force One Pavilion. We can see the 707, and this is the last 707 used by an American president. This jet aircraft is also known as SAM 27,000. I was here in 2004, the year that President Reagan passed away, and this aircraft was sitting on the hillside behind the library. When the Air Force One Pavilion was finished, this library museum complex became the largest presidential library in the nation. A great looking aircraft right here in Simi Valley. This is a fitting resting place for a great aircraft. This aircraft represents freedom around the world. And beneath the 707 is Marine One. This is one of the helicopters that President Reagan used. And the United States Marine Corps is responsible for the safety of the president when the president is in Marine One. And now we're looking at the Cadillac-based limousine that President Reagan used. This was given to him I believe on his 71st birthday, when he was in Eureka, Illinois, giving a speech. Wonderful sights, wonderful things in California. Great people working many, many, many years building this great state, part of the United States of America. And sadly, between Governor Jerry Brown, Dianne Feinstein, Kamala Harris, the two senators, Nancy Pelosi, the leader of the Democrats in the House, and Xavier Becerra, the Attorney General, they are on the path to tearing California down. Instead of achievement and greatness, they are happy with the thousands and thousands of homeless people. They're happy that nearly 40% of the households in California, English is not spoken. And quite frankly, I just believe they are so ill-educated that they don't understand what makes America great. It is manufacturing, it is work, it is getting people to work so people can be proud of their lives and what they do. But it's just as bad in the state of Illinois under Governor Rauner, Madigan, the Speaker, Cullerton, the President of the Senate, and Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth, the two United States Senators from Illinois. I believe they also do not love the people in their states. They do not understand the greatness of America, and any of them want to come and debate me. I will debate any one of them, anywhere, anytime, because I can explain what makes America great. So please email me at teamdan45@gmail.com and give me your comments, and I'm ready to debate the greatness of America.